All right, everyone, welcome to Canary's webinar series. I know there's a few people that are joining. Yes, wow, there's a lot, great. Well, hello and welcome to today's session. We're happy to have you with us today. My name is Stacy Guillen and I'm on the Canary's team focused on business development and strategic partnerships. I will be your moderator today. And I'm also joined by my colleague from Canary's, Mandy Price, our CEO. Before we go into this timely, relevant discussion, I have a few housekeeping items before we get started. First and foremost, we want to ensure that everyone can hear Supriya during the discussion and there's no distractions, so please keep your microphones on mute. If you have any audio or video trouble, you can message me on the chat. Myself and Mandy, we can provide you any instructions for help. Also, this is an interactive session, so we want to hear from you throughout the session. Any questions, comments, there's a chat box. There's also the Q&A section. So please feel free, and you have the option to also make it anonymous if you feel comfortable. But we will also carve the last 20 minutes for Q&A. So we'll be able to look at those questions and tee them up to Supriya. And then thirdly, this session is going to be recorded, and the recording will be emailed to all the attendees, and we will also have all recordings at resources.canarys.com. So when you get the chance, you can look at all the previous webinars and the webinar for today. So we still have a lot more people joining. Wow, that's wonderful. Please feel free to share your LinkedIn. I'm actually going to share mine as we speak, so forgive me, my eyes are actually looking here at the chat box, but I do want to send my information, and we could all connect on LinkedIn. So for our goal today is, and for Canary's goal all the time, is that we want to provide a space for courageous conversations, bold, courageous conversations to create a community for D&I executives and practitioners. So before we get started, we have a lot more. Thank you for joining, welcome. So for those that are joining, I want to quickly just provide you a quick summary of who we are, and then we're going to introduce Supriya and then get the conversation going. I am the Director of Business Development, and my initial exposure to D&I came from working as Head of Partnership Development for a large national Latinx professional organization, and while working with companies to help source diverse talent opportunities. I made that leap into D&I, and then I quickly realized that there was a gap between initiatives that companies were implementing and then the desired outcomes for attracting, engaging, and retaining people from diverse backgrounds. And that is what really led me to Canary's. Canary's is a platform with a mission to improve workplace collaboration, culture, and foster more inclusive work environments. We use a data and research-based approach to help companies address systemic issues and inequities that may persist within the organization. So we help companies make these data-driven decisions about their D&I goals or initiatives. And when you partner with us, you receive a personalized dashboard with tailored D&I metrics, insights to create real change instead of the check-the-box initiatives. So part of our ongoing commitment to drive and promote inclusion, we've created these multi-part webinar series focused specifically on helping D&I leaders to advance, promote diversity and inclusion during these uncertain times. The times have been crazy. We went from pandemic to now social unrest. And so we definitely want to provide this platform for individuals like Supriya that we have today, Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion and Belonging at Nasdaq. And she will be with us today to discuss how ERGs help strengthen the belongingness in times of uncertainty. So without further ado, let me just provide a quick bio and then we'll go right to it. So Supriya, she's wonderful. We started a relationship when I was at Hispanica. And she is the first lead of her practice, and she's helped shape the foundation of diversity, inclusion, and belonging efforts at Nasdaq, and her pioneering contributions have helped accelerate Nasdaq's cultural journey. Her strategy and contributions have helped in the growth of employee networks, setting up various global partnerships, and the fruition of a thriving environment that empowers all employees in Nasdaq's increasingly diverse workforce to bring their authentic selves to work. Before Nasdaq, Supriya worked at Mercer as Global Solutions Lead with the Talent Organization, and she also held previous positions with Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Credit Suisse, American Red Cross, and New York University. She has a master's in organizational psychology from Columbia University and a postgraduate from Mudra Institute of Communications in India. On the personal front, she has been awarded the 2018 Consortium of Urban Professionals Catalyst Award a New Jersey state proclamation, and other accolades for her contributions to the community. Priya, it is such a pleasure to call you my mentor, my colleague, part of the D&I space. Thank you for your time. And without further ado, let's jump into Priya. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Stacey, and thanks, Mandy, for inviting me here. I'm very grateful to be in the company of all of you here today. As I was telling Stacey and Mandy right before we started, I am hoping to share a lot of the work that we are doing here at Nasdaq, and I'd love to learn more from you guys as well. So as we continue our conversation, if you think of anything that you want to share, I'd love to hear that and maybe possibly see that in the chat, Stacey. I think that's the protocol that we're following, right? So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
And I hope everyone is safe and healthy and managing their mental well-being despite the challenging times that we are in.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Supriya, I like to start this candid conversation. I have a few questions today, of course, being the fact that we're observing Blackout Tuesday. It's a collective action. I know some of us are probably participating, or I've seen a few of my colleagues going out of their way to really participate and be part of the movement. It's a collective action to protest racism and police violence. This is in response to the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, and many others in a movement to provoke two things: accountability and change. Yes. During this time, during times like this, it's important for corporate and D&I leaders to have courageous and candid conversations of the incidents unfolding in front of our eyes. So my question is, as a D&I community, it is that we be more transparent and promote accountability within organizations. How has Nasdaq continued to ensure a safe environment for employees to freely express in these moments of uncertainty and specifically emotional turmoil?
Yeah, that's a very timely question. And I think a lot of us practitioners have to be equally brave while we are managing the situation and responding to the anxiety, the stress, the pain, the anger, the spectrum of emotions that people are facing at your respective organizations. So first of all, strength from within is required to address some of these issues. I'm an ally to our Black employees at Nasdaq. And you mentioned, Stacey, I'm the first leader of this organization. So a lot of the conversations that we've had at Nasdaq have kind of emanated from the employee population. And now there could be two ways of doing it. One could be a grassroots kind of movement where people raise their voices and share feedback and so on with HR. And then there's the other strategic way of doing things, which we have kind of followed here, where we have created platforms which are safe avenues for employees to discuss their concerns, to raise issues, and so on. So I'll tell you a little bit about how that's structured so that we can frame the conversation. And I apologize in advance. I'm going to jump through the slides, so don't get confused. So we have 10 employee networks at Nasdaq, and only one was there when I had joined back in 2017. We've grown to the 9 additional ones that you see here in the last 3 years. 30% of our population is represented through some of these networks, and basically the networks are charged with the fundamental charter that they will allow or enable our employees to have a safe avenue where their thoughts, their ideas, their interests could be shared. They will provide avenues for employees and colleagues to gain professional development, and then finally, have an avenue for supporting the communities that they care about. Nasdaq, as you can imagine, is a market leader in in the stock exchanges of the world. We have a responsibility to the world in terms of generating wealth and so on. So we feel very consciously that it is also our responsibility to support the external marketplace. So these 10 organizations internally within Nasdaq are the ones that kind of support the work that we do. And now from the point of view of, the safe conversation that we are enabling here, specifically for the Black community, we have the Global Link of Black Employees Employee Network, which which is essentially a voluntary body. It's comprised both of individuals who identify as Black and individuals who are allies to the Black community. So it's a group of about 100 or so people around the world. Our communities, all of these communities that you see here, are essentially global organizations. What we've tried to do is empower our people with the ability to set up these groups, form their leadership, get leadership experience as well, and in the process of doing that, create a global family through these networks. Um, they are led in most instances by one executive of the organization. The CEO obviously is the chair of all the entire diversity and inclusion platform of work that we do, but each particular organization is led by somebody. So in the case of the Black Employee Network, it's led by the CFO and another executive who is a senior vice president. And at this point, I'll tell you, I think there's a lot of um, energy around making sure that we take care of our employees, that we hear from them, that we keep our listening hats on. So right before this call, I came out of a 2 hour, I would say a 3 hour call, where we just heard from all our Black employees around what they were feeling, where they needed support, and what we could do differently. um, I think, Stacey, later on in this presentation, I also share what our CEO has specifically come out with. Over the weekend, the Black Employee Network also urged her to, share her views on what, she thinks and what her stand is on this whole topic. So she shared that later on as well, and I'm happy to share that with you. So hopefully that provides a little bit of color.
Yes, it absolutely does. And so, just to reiterate, you started with one ERG when you first started, and now that's gone from 1 to 10. So that kudos to you and your team for really amplifying those voices, the different communities that are part of your workforce. Tell us more. I'm curious to know, and I'm not sure if it's part of the presentation, the CEO letter. There's a lot of statements that have gone out. And so we're curious to know, did the Black ERG or the Global Link of Black Employees, were they involved at any point regarding those statements, or how did the CEO work with you and your ERGs?
That's a great question. So let me just show you the email that was drafted, and then I can tell you a little more around how it was done. So here is the email that many of you might have seen actually as well on LinkedIn. Our CEO Adina Friedman is one of the very few women leaders in the marketplace. She's quite a charismatic character herself, very inspiring individual. She got, the story behind all of this is on Friday, our chief financial officer suggested and asked the Black Employee Network as to how they wanted to address the situation, how they were feeling, and how they needed support from the organization. And over the period of the weekend, the CEO drafted her views on what she thought was important for the organization to know. She believes in the power of the community that we have created and the power of the collective strength that we have in this organization. Nasdaq is a place where, if you look at our engagement survey, we have over 90% of our population saying that they're very proud to be a part of Nasdaq and that they feel that they belong to this organization. So she really believes in the collective power of the people and the feedback that they give. So a lot of this that you see here was designed and created in partnership with the Global Link of Black Employees. And a lot of the words that you see here are also directly from the CEO herself. For instance, I've circled a particular line here where she references Dr. Martin Luther King referring to the redemptive power of love. And now the four-letter word love is, usually not a word used in corporations. The uniqueness of Adina is that she believes in the balancing power of fear and love, and we as an organization have truly begun to feel in the authenticity of her voice and the authenticity of her care and genuine concern for the organization. So love is a central theme. It's a heartfelt call for us, and I think the Global Link of Black employees, with their candid ask, with their uh, fervent kind of request, or their openness to share what they are feeling, have also kind of empowered her and other allies in the organization to step up in a significant way. I think it's a two-way road. So the underrepresented minority population sometimes has to educate the allies in order for them to also react in the positive, in the right way. So I think that has helped us significantly. So this is what she did over the weekend. And then yesterday, trying to see if that's on here as well. I've shown you a picture of our Black Employee Network from earlier this year when they were meeting for their Black History Month Summit. So it's a small group of individuals, but very empowered folks. So over the weekend, that statement came out, and then we are taking intentional steps internally to actually make change institutionalized. It shouldn't just be a PR statement for us and a statement from the CEO where she refers to, the racial tensions that are going on. It needs to have really some meat and some actions that ultimately result in real change. So while this statement, take the time to recommit to the values of diversity and inclusion, came up early this morning, right after the opening bell. The picture that you see is of the Nasdaq Tower in Times Square, New York. Um, we are also going to put in place an allyship program where we basically want people to pledge and commit to the values of DNI and thereby do three things, to actually move the needle. Educate ourselves on what we can do as allies. And so for that, we will be creating resources in partnership with the Global Link of Black Employee Network. And we are very authentic and very honest about the fact that we don't know everything and we want to learn. So that's something that we are trying to open the doors on. The second one is ensure that our employees commit to inclusive and empathetic behavior, both within and outside the firm. So while we realize that within the boundaries of the firm, a lot of folks will try and maintain their filters, we want to make sure that we are cultivating a group of people who are conscious individuals who take care of their behaviors even outside of the organization. And finally, the biggest commitment and the most easily trackable commitment is that around hiring and advancement. We realize that we have a challenge, and that the African American community is still an underrepresented population within our organization. So we will commit to hiring and advancing individuals intentionally as we go along. So we want people to pledge to some of these actions. And while I'm saying all of this work is work in progress. What you don't see a picture of is something that is still being baked. So that is what's going on right now. The 3R call that we just had was also one of the significant steps the Global Link of Black employees took to actually open the doors to the community to come and speak up, share their grievances, share their anxieties, share their stress. Out of that conversation, many action items emerged. Things like a strong emphasis on unconscious bias training, a strong emphasis on speak up programs within the organization, a very strong desire for the organization to have contribution in the external community. All of those ideas emerged, and we will work on them. That is our plan as we go along.
Wow, Supriya, that's
a long-winded answer. I'm sorry about that.
No. That's exactly. I'm sure that I'm not the only one that's taking notes so quickly. I'm trying to capture everything, but the three actions I love the fact that you're very honest that it's still a work in progress, right? We don't have the answers. And so you've actually answered my question, because I wanted to know what additional actions, in addition to releasing statements, are there other actions that we should be taking as D&I leaders to combat systemic inequities in corporate America? And I think that these 3 actions that you just shared with us is complementing the releasing statement, but of course, a lot of the work is from within, right? So I appreciate you sharing that with us. So we have other questions here, so we've all reached a tipping point right now, and there has been righteously, angry individuals collectively were galvanizing to dismantle institutional and systemic racism. How have you addressed your employee sentiments while creating a space of belongingness where everyone feels heard? Everyone's heard at this given moment.
That's a great question. I'll share with you our internal story of how that space of belongingness actually got generated through the actions of our leader, Adina Friedman, and how she kind of embraced the philosophy of belonging that I introduced 3 years ago. She was new to the firm as a CEO. She's not new to the firm. She's been there for 25 years now. But she basically had brought me in because they wanted to be intentional about setting up a diversity and inclusion practice. And they were only looking for a D&I professional, at that point in time, who would help them with analytics and setting up, some basic pillars. The concept of belongingness was on my mind. Pat Waters from LinkedIn's former CHRO, had introduced the concept, and it felt very real to me. Because as much as I have experienced in the financial services space, a lot of individuals from the underrepresented groups feel that, you are doing everything right on paper. You're bringing us into the meetings. You are, giving us opportunities to speak our mind, but sometimes we don't feel like we truly belong, and hence we don't have that sense of ownership. We don't have that stake in the organization as much as another person from the majority might have, who feels that they truly belong. So Adina was very impressed with the concept, and over a period of time, she started thinking about the actual behaviors that one would need to cultivate and show in order to create that sense of belongingness within the employee force as well. And I'll step back a little bit and explain what we think of when we say belonging. For us, belonging implies a psychologically safe environment where people are able to act as owners, take on ownership of the projects that they do, the work that they do, take on ownership of the culture that we have at the organization, and play as a team, play as a team member. So inclusion done well, as we say it here, is essentially what we think of as belonging. So essentially what she tried to do over the 3 years was to cultivate within her leadership team a sense of transparency, sense of trust, and a sense of importance and around the diversity and inclusion concept. And I would say, went all out to actually put her energies to make sure that people believed in the fact and really accepted the fact that we are trying to create an organization where everyone feels like they, truly belong. So that sense of openness on the part of the leader, that kind of authenticity, and that kind of transparency led to a state where you will find that at a place like Nasdaq, people feel very comfortable asking leadership at her level and at across the board questions around identity, questions around race, questions around diversity and inclusion, and so on. And recent actions, some other actions that I'll share with you that have actually contributed to this sense of belongingness in the space of belongingness include things like our CEO and her direct reports meeting with the employees on a nearly monthly basis to address their concerns, to hear their feedback on the workplace conditions, on what's going well, what needs to be changed, And they have those monthly conversations with each employee network. They also have closed door kind of sessions with handpicked employees across the firm who are at various levels in the organization, not only her directs and their directs, but you know that feedback mechanism is plays a very big role in the creation of or cultivating that sense and perception of belonging. It empowers the individual to know that what they are saying is being heard, what they are asking for is being paid attention to. And the next level within that, there's more to this. This next level within that is the hiring and the development of people in positions like mine and in my leadership who are responsible for employee experience. It is our job to make sure that what feedback we get from these individuals finds action. Every conversation is I would say noted, and every feedback is kind of actioned upon. Where feedback is not actioned upon, we are able to kind of track it and go back later on to leadership and say why we could not do it. But there has to be a rationale for certain feedback that is not been actioned on. So we have tried a couple of different ways to generate that sense of belongingness. We have also opened the doors, I will tell you. So these 10 networks that you see here, I'm going to see if there's a picture here. So in a normal year, it's been 3 years. A lot of these networks are brand new, and they comprise of the diverse workforce within the organization. We're a small company, 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 people at any given point in time. All of these individuals that you see here, a part of networks, are consider themselves leaders within those networks. There's only one big network, which is that of the women, which is about 800 people strong. They also have a very big leadership team. So I would say about 150 individuals from the employee networks lead from within. So each individual is empowered to have the ability to make change happen. That leads to belonging. Um, all of these individuals are from various business units. They are brought together via in-person events in a normal year, or through technologically sound connection systems. And I'm going to try and show you the Microsoft Teams concept that we have at Nasdaq. And we basically try and empower individuals to take on the onus of cultural change, and that creates a huge perception of feeling a sense of belonging in the workplace. So there's a lot of underlying work and intentional work that we try and do to make sure that people feel that they belong and that they are heard, and what they will say will be done. So it's essentially, when we say Nasdaq is a family, we try and operate to a very large extent on the rules that a family runs by, where there is definitely a social contract, where good behavior is rewarded and bad behavior is not tolerated. Um, but then there is a whole aspect of psychological safety, playing as a team, acting as your owners of the organization. All of that is kept foremost in the mind when we think of any kind of safe place, and creating that system of transparency and creating that system where trust is cultivated.
Wow, that's incredible, Supriya, with just the actions or the actionable tasks that you're all taking to mobilize and move forward the ERGs. You mentioned something about feedback. One of the things that we do here at Canaries is exactly that. We allow in our platform for individuals to provide that feedback, which then turns into actionable insights for D&I leaders to move forward in terms of decision making and how to elevate or pivot the employee experience. So kudos to that for Nasdaq having those insights to make reasonable real-time decisions. So we actually have a question here that came on board. It's more so a comment, and I'm going to read it out loud. Just so Pretty much, it says here, I'm being honest and transparent. As African Americans, we oftentimes feel our needs have to be downplayed in order to fit the culture and not be overly expressive of our issues. How do you suggest we approach the situations calmly and quietly without being overlooked, yet still get our point across? At this time, we don't want to be aggressive, but we do want to be heard. Leadership is key, but how do you approach a situation with leadership being 100% engaged? With
Yeah,
not
I
being
think,
100% engaged, I'm sorry.
yeah, I feel that, you hopefully are in an environment where your leadership is fully committed. Because if they're not committed, you will obviously definitely not have the trust in the organization that what you're saying will be done. So when, as I said, I just came out of a similar kind of format where the members of the Globe Network were talking about, their concerns and talking about what they wanted Nasdaq to change internally. And I feel having a sense of faith in the organization, um, that they will listen to your problems and get things done and get it resolved. That kind of faith really needs to be there before you start asking questions. If you have no faith in the organization, then you obviously will feel disturbed even while asking the questions. um, the second point is you should also consider going to certain allies that you think have an open mind and are willing to hear you out. They could be individuals who are within the leadership ranks in your organization. They're typically, trained enough or mindful enough to know that this is a sensitive environment and that they are there to listen to you. So leadership within the organization, human resource departments within the organization, your DIB professionals within the organizations should be your go-tos. Um, and do know that as allies, in some instances, they might not know everything. So when you ask them a question, if they do become defensive, I would say, think about the fact that this person is probably feeling as scared as you are in responding to your question. So I think your patience and your equanimity will help you go a long way in getting your problem resolved.
Thank you, Supriya. That was very helpful. Um, we have more questions.
I'm sorry to Nikwan. Hopefully you have a question that I can answer. You're not feeling engaged here. Maybe there's something that's on your mind.
No, absolutely no. We're just, I think the presentation is great so far. Question. So as a D&I leader, you're responsible for addressing discrimination, harassment, and bullying complaints promptly and timely. Some companies have reported increased reports of harassment and discrimination, and employees struggle to communicate and discuss those current racial issues. What steps have been taken to protect all communities in Nasdaq? And there's another question there. How have you helped employees cultivate these conversations amongst themselves?
So this goes back to the policies that the organization has put in place even before those conversations take place, right? At Nasdaq, I'll tell you that the fundamental policy that is described in our code of ethics is that we do not discriminate, we do not tolerate harassment, and we will take every action to make sure that our employees feel confident and safe in our organization, and that they ultimately feel that they're included and they feel like they're belonging to Nasdaq. So that is a fundamental, contract that we put in front of our employees. We believe in it. That is our credo that we will run by. Post that, we ensure that the conversations that happen around difficult, situations, around the sensitive topics that folks want to discuss with us, the grievances that they want to bring with us, all those conversations are essentially confidential. We have something called a Speak Up program, which sits outside of even HR. It sits within a group called the Ethics and Compliance Group, and most large organizations have similar departments which are responsible for, hearing individuals' concerns and keeping, those conversations confidential, and for finding ways to get resolution on those conversations without any kind of retaliation from, the individual who has aggressed. So that's the essential place from a compliance and a policy standpoint that I will tell you that we have taken to protect the communities in Nasdaq. Um, I would say that from an employee standpoint, a lot of the work that I described before, being led by my CEO, being led by other leaders in the organization, that has led to a culture where employees are able to not only have those conversations amongst themselves, but they're even able to escalate those conversations up to the CEO herself. The CEO right now, for instance, is meeting with the entire organization through a town hall every week, and that's because of COVID. She used to meet all of us every quarter previously, but she kind of has an open door policy, and that open door policy essentially is that, says that if you have a concern, you can come and speak to me, and I will try and find a solution to your problem. So, and that kind of behavior or that kind of transparency runs across the organization. Her leadership is held accountable for creating that kind of open culture. They are assessed on it as well. So the engagement survey, for instance, that we referenced previously, that probably you guys also help organizations with, that is a very powerful tool in getting leaders to be accountable about, creating those safe havens for their employees, for being good managers, good leaders. So those behaviors are cultivated across the organization. There's obviously training, there's obviously learning and development around how how one can be a good leader, how one can be a good manager. But we try and manage those sensitive conversations with the help of policy, with the help of some level of structure, and then create an environment where whatever is said and done, in a safe space is not necessarily communicated back to the manager, and where, um, if you have a concern, you're not held, to the ground for it. If we say that we are a family, we really go by that, and yeah, hopefully that
No,
helps. Yeah.
absolutely, it did. Thank you. So we have incoming questions. Thank you all for your engagement. That's wonderful. So we're going to start out with the first question, Supriya. Unless you have more to present, I think that we should start carving out those few minutes, because I know there's questions coming in. So I'm going to allow you to, yeah, if you desire, we can complete that presentation before we hop onto questions.
No, that's okay. I'd love to hear questions. Please feel free to ask anything that you like.
Okay, wonderful. First question. So for ERG programming, do you have your teams focus on people-driven items versus pure employee engagement? For example, teams sometimes want to just do fun offerings like National Cookie Day, etc. To me, that is more pure employee engagement and not D&I. So it should stay separate. Excuse me. So it should stay separate so it doesn't blur the lines. What do you think of that, Supriya?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of fun and strategic initiatives, I'll call them. We kind of make sure that, and I think you're referring to the employee networks, not the teams. Teams is a different concept for us.
I think our participant here is for ERG programming.
ERG programming, yes. So exactly. So I think so for ERGs, we try and follow, a dual path. We want our employee networks to allow for social interaction, but we also at the same point in time provide guidance and consultation on what we think is best practice. So for instance, let's say our LGBT employee network, the Open, is going to celebrate Pride Month, and all they think of is a dance party for the members of the network. We kind of give them consultation on what are the other things that we see in other companies being done. And that has, to be very honest with you, that has been the path that I've kind of followed over the last 3 years. All my networks, except for one, are essentially brand new. They are being run by individuals who are brand new to leading these networks. So sometimes they don't know what they will aim for. We have a charter in place for the employee network. So there's something called the Employee Networks Guidebook that I created, as I started to think about what each employee network should be doing, what should be the structure, what should be the governance structure from the top of the organization, how should the leaders interact. Within that guidebook, what we say is there are three things that the employee network should do: create social engagement, create professional development programming, and then create community engagement. So if the activities are not aligning with either of, any of those three items, we kind of nudge the network and say, well, where exactly do you think this sits? Um, so we kind of, try and keep them focused like that.
Okay, so I caught two: professional development. The criteria is professional development, community engagement. I did not catch the first one.
Social networking. So that social piece is the fun offering, to be very frank with you. They could be fun offerings like National Cookie Day, but they are meant to, bring people together, because at the end of the day, that's, also one of the big functions of these employee networks, to help individuals connect with each other. We are a global organization, spread across over 50 plus countries, and not everyone here knows each other. So the employee networks are a big channel for doing it.
Thank you, Supriya. That was very helpful. That you have like a rubric, a criteria that funnels the different ideas and how all those align to that rubric. Next question that we have here is: do you have administrators that monitor and or approve the chats on Microsoft Teams?
Right. Okay.
We're struggling with how to set up dedicated spaces for sensitive conversations and how much oversight to have over them.
Yeah, you were in a tricky spot just like us. So we started our Microsoft Teams channels about a month or so ago, and that was in response to the COVID situation. I have shared in my deck here, there were a couple of things that we did quickly in response to, the COVID situation, and that was largely run by the employee networks. Of them, the employee networks channels were one. And basically, what we've done right now so far is that we have set up these networks. We have identified the leaders to be the moderators of those conversations. But as DRB practitioners, and when I say we, I have a team here with me that supports me in doing this. We keep an oversight over the kind of conversation that's going on in there. And I wish I could take you into Microsoft Teams to show you what the discussion guidelines are. But we have identified 4 or 5 things which are essentially discussion guidelines which help people stay on the path, of proper behavior and, commonsensical, good, conversations. Those guidelines are mentioned on each page. Now, like I said, all behaviors at Nasdaq essentially are monitored, if needed, on the lines of the code of ethics. So if anything is out of line, we essentially take it back to the code of ethics and we say, your behavior is out of line from what we are suggesting, and so probably needs to be fixed. But we try and do that, in a supportive fashion, I would say. So the moderators are the employee network leaders for now, and they're not moderators as much as, not monitors as much as, conversation facilitators. So we've recently started on this journey, to be very honest with you.
Great questions from all those that are participating. Please keep bringing on more questions. In the meantime, go ahead.
I'll just add one more point on here. I see in the specific question, the individual is asking, do we approve the chats? No, we don't. We have opened up the private channels for conversations, but we're not moderating it in the technical sense. Anything that is posted goes up there. And so far, we haven't seen any bad behavior or any kind of negative kind of conversations. Sorry, Stacey, please go ahead.
That's a great point, Supriya. Thank you for noting that. We have another question coming in. Is there any insights or learnings on how to keep employees engaged when they are in remote or different locations within the ERG space? For example, sales employees.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends on how your organization is structured. So in our particular case, I'll tell you that our organization at this point in time is 100% remote in most places, right? We are connected through technology. We have all got these cell phones that we work through, and our laptops. So individuals who are on the road, I think that is the question here, who are on the road, who are not necessarily connected to the in-person events, how do you keep them engaged? In our case, I'll tell you that a lot of the conversations that go on are also via um, we are online webinars such as the kind that we're having here today. So it's a deliberate feature where let's say 50% of the events will be in person, the rest of the events will be kind of webinar oriented. The nature of the organization is also such that webinar or based programming is very welcomed. We make sure that our communication is frequent and consistently delivered to everyone in the organization so that they feel that they are included in the part of the Nasdaq family, as we call it. So while this is not connected to the question that you're asking, these actions that you see here on this page, for instance, the newsletter that we started recently, things of that nature, the community calendar, all of these kind of keep people engaged. They keep even the remote workers included in the part of the programming that we do. We are also, interestingly, an organization that does a lot of programs for the external community. So we kind of equipped to deliver our programs via online formats. So, for instance, if you came to, let's say, the Black History Month Summit or the LGBT Leadership Conference at NASDAQ, you would also have the ability to view that via webcast. So that is one way to keep folks engaged. Technology has come a long way, and it is kind of helping us in various different ways, including this.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I noticed the weekly newsletters, which are offered to the majority of the workforce, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, keep those questions coming. Excellent, excellent questions. We have another one here. Supriya, what tips and strategies can you provide to our participants that are D&I practitioners and or ERG leaders in their respective organizations, again, to cultivate that ecosystem of transparency and accountability? Yeah. What other tips and strategies can you give us?
Look, I've been in the space of DIB for a while now, and I have traversed through various kinds of organizations. I feel that DIB practitioners really are doing God's work in a very significant way in the organizations that we're at. We are responsible for supporting sometimes individuals who consider themselves invisible within the organization. So we have a very big task on our shoulders. And I think, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, we need to be brave ourselves first before we kind of give strength to the people that need our help. It's like putting on your oxygen mask first. So take care of yourself first. That is the one tip that I'll give you. I think spiritually, I feel I've grown a lot as I have been working in the DIB space. I have become more mindful of my own biases, more mindful of my own behaviors. And that has helped me not only shift my own behaviors, but also coach other leaders, other individuals who want to make a change. Specifically, and I think there's a slide on this as well here. Let me find it for you all. Specifically, I think I believe in the concept of love, and love within the corporate space has a very different and special meaning. I think love for our employees and love for our um, you know uh, organization is very critical in making any kind of shift happen. Um, it allows you to work harder and it allows you to be more productive. For DIB leaders and professionals, I would say, utilize the power of your love for your company to increase the sense of, connections, to increase the sense of community within your organization. Essentially, at the end of the day, we're all, equal, we're all same, we're all, a part of the global family. So making those connections happen at a global level is very critical. Don't uh, you know, get mired by um, the local issues only. While they are very, very important, please keep in mind that you, in many instances, take care of a global workforce, which has very different kinds of concerns and problems depending on the location. So that's one. The second is, like I said, be present as leaders and you know grow yourself as an individual so that you can also give strength to other people, and provide them with the confidence that the work that they're doing will be will make a significant change within the organization. Utilize metrics, utilize data, utilize interventions to show that kind of impact and change. Also utilize the fact that this is the time when change needs to happen. The power of this unprecedented time is that what we will do right now will be remembered for eons, and DIB professionals have the ability to make cultural shift happen in a far meaningful way than many other areas within HR. So realize your own power and help other leaders to realize the power of this time. And finally, I think get things done fast. So accelerating action and institutionalizing change basically implies that when you decide that you want to get something done, try and don't ponder over it too much. Get the checks done through the risk management teams, through the legal teams, through your communication partners, but then make change happen quickly. And try and get advice from external peers so that what you're doing essentially um, kind of also reverberates across the board, and you're able to share information, exchange information, and also get the best ideas so that once you institutionalize that change, once you embed that change within your organization, it stays and it sticks for a long time. So yeah, I think we're all on a difficult journey right now. There's a lot that could be said and done, but I kind of also feel, I get strength from this message that was shared recently with me. It's a poem by called Invictus, which Nelson Mandela recited to other prisoners when he was incarcerated. And it basically, if you have the time to read it later on, it talks to the power of the soul, the power of owning your own ship, and realizing that even if the situation looks dreary right now, it is upon us to make change happen. So we have to be strong, and we have to make sure that our strength is kind of translated and kind of goes over to other people as well.
Thank you so much, Supriya. This is such a wonderful poem here from what Nelson Mandela shared with us. So thank you again, and I cannot agree more with you in terms of being kind to ourselves, being aware. We have to stay aware of our biases, how we perform at work, what we bring home. And so I think that everything you shared with us was right on target. Before we wrap up, we have a few minutes left, about 6 minutes. I'm not sure if there's any additional questions that you want Supriya to answer for us. But in the interim, Supriya, before we wrap up, any other resources, books that you've read, podcasts that you would suggest for our amazing D&I leaders on the call? You get so much knowledge and intel, so we just want to see, where do you tap all this great energy from?
So like I said, I think I'm on a spiritual journey. We face a lot of challenges every day. I will be honest with you and tell you, over the last 2 months, I've spent a lot of time meditating. I've learned the various practices of meditation, including transcendental meditation. Um, and we had the good fortune of having Deepak Chopra over at Nasdaq about, I would say, 6 months ago, to talk to us about the power of the mind, the power of meditation, and so on. And I think if you guys have the chance and have the time right now, do take a moment to look up some of the work that Deepak Chopra has done on meditation. I feel as a practitioner in DNI, having stillness, having a center within me is very important, because I have to, understand and kind of empathize with the challenges that many of our people are facing here every day. So in order to gain strength, I definitely look to, some of Deepak's advice, and kind of follow some of his meditation guidelines as well. The other individual that I really follow is Adam Grant. His concept of givers and takers really resonates with me. He says that his basic philosophy, and many of you might already know, is that givers essentially win in the long run. So I try to cultivate that sense within a sense of sharing and generosity within the organization as well. Some of the work that we've done in the last 2 months, where, for instance, our employee networks, which weren't geared to deliver 4 or 5 events a week, they were working exceptionally hard to take care of our employees. Besides all the great work that HR was doing, they were working hard as well. So I tried to cultivate some of the work, generosity, and some of the, uh, desire to give to the organization by, referring to some of the work Adam Grant says. And finally, I think Hitendra Vadva was a professor at Columbia University. He's somebody that I've heard of, as a heard speak a couple of years ago. His ideas around leadership and his ideas around inclusivity really resonate with me. So, you know, take a look at his website as well. It's called mentora.org.
Okay.
Um, really interesting work and really interesting guy.
That's wonderful. Well, Supriya, thank you again for your time. I know we had a question that just came in, and we'll make sure to share that with Supriya and forward that over to those participants. Thank you so much for being with us today, Supriya. You've been wonderful in providing us such a sensitive topic, but yet, it's needed. So please all help me, and thanks to Supriya for the insightful information that she shared with us today. If you'd like, you could send her a nice note in our chat box. Once again, thank you, Supriya. We will have the recording and also the PowerPoint in resources.canaries.com in the next 24 to 48 hours. If you don't receive it, please email me at stacy@canaries.com. Thank you all for just being so courageous and so kind to each other and allowing us to provide the safe platform for you all. With that being said, our next webinar will be on Tuesday, July 14th. Stay tuned for our topic and our speaker. And again, just to reiterate, all of our webinars are located, articles, webinars, thought leadership reports, they're all located at resources.canaries.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn for any news about D&I trends and updates on future webinars. Supriya, thank you again. You've been absolutely wonderful. I know that you've been super busy and you've been so kind and compassionate about this subject. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. Have an amazing day. And we're all in this together. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me, and everyone stay safe and healthy. I look forward to, if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, happy to, connect with you there as well. So thank you very much for your time, and peace to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Supriya, and everyone else. Bye-bye.